Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. What Donald Trump wants, he usually posts about on Truth Social at odd hours. From his demands that states gerrymander their congressional maps to keep him in office, to compelling his Justice Department to prosecute his political enemies. Now, amid flashing red warning signs that his party will lose the midterm elections by large margins due to both historical trends and his soaring unpopularity, Donald Trump is demanding an election army. Over the weekend, Donald Trump lashed out at an election integrity effort launched by Democrats, posting this on Truth Social, quote, "During my historic election in 2024, the Republicans had an election integrity army in every single state to preserve the sanctity of each legal vote. We will be doing the same again in 26, but it will be much bigger and stronger." While that sort of brutish, detailless claim would normally prompt an eye roll, it does come amid other stuff. An alarming effort by Donald Trump and his backers to centralize control of our elections into the hands of the federal government, with Trump allies calling for ICE at polling places in November. Take a look.
Like, why is there objection to sending ICE officers to polling places? Illegals can't vote. It doesn't make any sense.
We can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm elections.
We should point out to Todd Blanche that the argument cuts both ways, right? People here illegally can't, and based on the Trump administration's own investigation, don't vote. So why would you, Todd Blanche, send them there? But it also comes as Todd Blanche's department, as well as Donald Trump's allies in state houses all across our country, are working overtime to undermine the authorities of states to conduct their own elections. As Trump's Justice Department weaponizes the big lie to get a hold of election data in key swing states like Arizona and Georgia. Republicans in red states are rushing to redraw their congressional maps after Donald Trump demanded they do so. They're also doing that after his handpicked justices in the Supreme Court participated in the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, with Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina all making efforts to eliminate majority black, majority Democratic districts in just the last week. And if you're looking for the why are they doing all this? Look no further than the polls, which increasingly show Donald Trump's party losing the 2026 midterms. The Economist forecasting model gives Democrats a 19 in 20 chance of taking back the House. Donald Trump's full court press to keep his party in power by any means necessary, whether voters like it or want it or not, is where we start today. The former lead investigator for the January 6th Select Committee, Tim Heaphy, is back with us. He's now a partner at Heaphy, Smith, Harbach, and Wyndham. Also joining us, Protect Democracy Executive Director Ian Bassin is back. And with me at the table, NYU law professor, legal analyst Melissa Murray is here. Tim Heaphy, they tried this in 2020. They came up short because of the actions of a handful of people. No one investigated those crimes more thoroughly than you. Tell us what they tried before, what stopped them, and where those guardrails no longer exist.
Yeah, Nicole, you started the piece here by talking about the why, right? Their why is that there's widespread election fraud, that lots of people around this country, illegal aliens or people out of the proper precinct trying to vote. That's just false. The president has been saying this repeatedly for years, and it just isn't true. There's this myth of widespread voter fraud that is the purported justification for an election integrity unit or other steps. In 2020, right, his argument again, which he continues to repeat, was that the results in that election were infected with widespread fraud, ineligible voters voting, dead voters, miscounting, intentional voter fraud. And again, Nicole, there's never been any factual basis for that. So all he is doing now, I think, as you correctly defined the why, is coming up with a sort of precedential argument as to why he will lose. It's to argue, even in advance of the election, that there's going to be fraud. That's why we're taking all these steps. Because he knows that what's likely to happen based on historical trends in the polls is that he's not going to do well this time. But we got to just, every time we talk about this, I feel like we just have to come back to the baseline fact of the myth of voter fraud in this country. We do this well. States are really good at it. We have integrity in our voting systems across the country. And it's just false to suggest otherwise to the American people.
I mean, Tim, I guess the pushback, though, is that, you guys had his backers who believed the lies. And so I think on Earth One, actually, even dangerously close to Earth Two, the second Trump administration investigated through its Department of Homeland Security this matter of whether people here illegally vote, and they found that they do not. So even if you want to use their own numbers, this is a solution. ICE agents at the polls is a solution in search of a problem, but I wonder if we're asking about the wrong problem. I mean, it's obviously there to intimidate and threaten, and what do you do about that?
100%, Nicole. You're exactly right. It reveals the why, because again, the why is not voter fraud or protection of integrity of the ballot. The why is to intimidate people. It's to get people to stay home. It's to shrink the map or shrink the number of people voting to try to maximize the chances of his political success. Right? Again, if there's nothing to protect, there's no fraud to prevent, then it's revealed what the purpose is. I'm much more troubled, Nicole, by the prospect of ICE agents or police officers or even National Guard or military near our polling places. Historically, we have had political polling places that have been independent of military law enforcement intervention. That's because we don't want them to be intimidating. We want people to freely come and exercise the franchise, their right to vote. So I'm more troubled by the presence of law enforcement officers than I am by lawyers standing back behind the tables in some election. Both parties have done that for years. I've done that on the Democratic side, been an election integrity monitor. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are rules about what they can or can't say or do or come within a certain number of feet from the actual polling place. It's the presence of the uniformed military and law enforcement, Nicole, that's much more intimidating and has the potential to suppress the valid exercise of the franchise.
In Basson, the sort of elephant in the room is that the two stories hang together with what is clearly an attack on minority voting rights in America. I mean, ICE agents aren't there looking for me. They're there looking for people who they think they can make feel afraid, that they'll either be asked to produce, can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but documents to prove that they're citizens, or follow them home to attack someone that they think may live in a mixed status house, or harass them, or create some sort of vigilante system where people who vote are then investigated to make sure they have that status. And it comes at the same time that this Supreme Court struck down the Voting Rights Act. Do you think we are I like to always sort of get your big brain thinking about the pushback. I mean, are we sort of back at a time, a chapter of history where it will become the mission of everyone who wants to remain a democracy to go down and make sure that people have the right to vote and they're not harassed?
The answer to that absolutely is yes. I mean, we are witnessing an attack on voting rights, and particularly the voting rights of Black communities and communities of color, at a level that we really haven't seen since sort of Jim Crow in the South, and we need to respond to it. And there's going to be a mass day of action this Saturday, May 16th, across the country, but centered in Selma and Montgomery, Alabama, honoring the sacrifices made by the civil rights generation. And everybody who's watching this now should go to allroadsleadtothesouth.com and register to participate this Saturday, because it is now our generation's time to carry the mantle forward of civil rights and voting rights in this country to make sure that we remain a democracy. That's going to take work by all of us. But the good news is we are going to succeed at this, right? Donald Trump has been president during one other midterm election in his life, and that was in 2018. And in 2018, the Democrats flipped 40 seats in the House of Representatives at a time when Donald Trump was more popular than he is today. They cannot gerrymander their way out of a 40-seat shellacking, and he's less popular today than he was in 2018. So they are going to try to gerrymander their way out of it because they are otherwise losing unpopular, and they're going to try to rig the rules. But here's the thing. Our founders, in their inimitable wisdom, made it so the president doesn't control the rules of elections. And for the president to try to rig the midterm elections, he is going to need accomplices up and down our federal system, at the state level, at the local level, in the Congress and the courts. And in order to get those accomplices, he needs to show that he's politically powerful. And the fact of the matter is, he is not. We have reached the point in the story where the Trumpist political project is in its death spiral. And I have talked to Republican leaders who are in the sort of non-hardcore Trump, but soft Republicans supporting of the Trump administration camp, and they know it. They know that the Trumpist political project is over. And that means he is not going to be able to do what he needs to do to complete his authoritarian consolidation. And if we do our part, we are not just going to save our democracy, but we're going to have an opportunity to really reform it and rebuild it to be fit for purpose for the 21st century.
My head wants to nod along with everything you said, but my gut still feels scarred by the news events of last week. Just speak a little bit about how the sort of shock and awe of the Virginia decision and the Supreme Court decision rippled through MAGA as maybe, I don't know, a last hurrah. I mean, I know, I guess, intellectually that everything you're saying about the movement being at about 28 to 30% is true. But it does feel like this branch of government that we've looked to over the last 15 months for its steadfast rejection of Donald Trump's lawlessness has just handed him two massive victories on the voting rights side.
Yeah, well, first off, it's important to recognize that the current iteration of the United States Supreme Court has been against voting rights and racial justice since the beginning of this Federalist Society conservative ascendancy took over the court. So this is not a Trumpist project. This is a project that those 6 members of the Supreme Court have been at for their entire careers since John Roberts was a young lawyer in the executive branch. And at the end of the day, they are going to probably help Republicans in a handful of seats across the country through a really disgusting allowance of racial gerrymandering across the South. But it is basically going to give the Republicans a handful of seats in which they are better positioned than they would have been before both the Virginia decision and the U.S. Supreme Court decision.